Hey all. So, had my first ever guitar lesson this week on Tuesday. I did it. After 350 days playing guitar by myself, following the Justin Guitar, Marty Schwartz, and a couple other people, I bit the bullet and paid for, I think, 4 or 8 guitar lessons. I was really excited. I told everybody at work, and everybody was asking me about it. And I was really excited, and everybody was curious to see how it would go. I was curious too. So I was a bit nervous going in. So before all this, I emailed one company. They didn't write me back, so I wrote them off. So I emailed another company just to give my background and would I be a good fit. And they said, sure, come on in. So I went in and I mentioned roughly what I wanted to do, which was, in my email, I was pretty broad. It was, wanted to be able to play full songs with the intention of doing, say, an open mic night kind of a thing. Possibly sing and play at the same time, because I've been playing without singing, say, like... that kind of a thing. Most of the stuff that I'm playing is just basically G, C, and D, more or less. That can get you pretty far, but it was getting kind of monotonous, and I could go learning more songs, but that's not just learning. I wasn't happy with that progress, and going the route of learning more songs. I didn't feel like that was a good use of my time. So I kind of want an instructor to help me figure it out. After playing for a year, here's really what you should be focusing on to get better as a guitarist. So in my email, I mentioned, playing songs, singing and playing at the same time. But I also was keen on learning Pride and Joy by Stevie Ray Vaughan. And that was basically the gist of my first cut at figuring out what I would want from guitar lessons. So I go in on last night. I think it was 6. Yeah, so Tuesdays at 6 is when I go, and I was a bit nervous. I'm more nervous than I thought I would be. After a year playing, I thought, I got this, but I went in and I completely flubbed it. First impressions is it wasn't what I expected, but I didn't have anything to gauge it off of. The only thing I could gauge guitar lessons off of is Justin Guitar, and he did a few. I've watched a few private lessons of Justin he published with Lee Anderton, for example, and there was a later one with another student that he went through. So I saw how Justin approached teaching, and Justin is more of a listener and letting the student play and then listening for a while and then spotting where they were weak. That was my general going in, what I thought that a guitar instructor would do. Listen, evaluate where I'm currently at and come up with a plan to get me where I want it to go. That's basically what that was my expectation going in. But the instructor, he had some questions about where I was going, because he said your email was kind of broad and there's a lot of stuff there, and if you want to go to Stevie Ray Vaughan route, that's a very tough road, and there's a lot of work to get there. Right, get down, buddy. Get down. And I also mentioned singing and playing at the same time. So he wanted me to pick of all that. What would I want to focus on if I only had to pick one thing? And I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, I can learn songs on my own. Singing is not really something that I need right now as a guitarist. 1 year in, I think that can come with time. So the Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff kind of seemed interesting to me. So I kind of gravitated towards that because I haven't played blues. I've been playing, like I said, I've been playing just simple strumming, that kind of a thing. Songs, G, C, and D all day long. So I kind of gravitated towards the lessons to focus on blues guitar, which I think he was keen on. I don't think my impression of the instructor, I won't name names, but my impression was that he doesn't get many students that want to play blues lead guitar. So I think he was kind of leading me towards there anyway. But, that is something that I've never done before, which I think that opens the doors to a lot of other things. So even though I don't think his intention, we came about it the right way, but I think that's a good next step for me, breaking out of just G, C, and D, and basically open chords and some bar chords. So some 12-bar blues and improvisation, I think, is a good next step for me. And we came about it wrong. I don't know if I like the way we came about that conclusion, but I think that was a good logical next step for me. So I go in, I bring in. I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't know what we would be doing in the first guitar lesson. So I brought in an acoustic, and I brought in my classic vibe telly. I brought in every guitar book, so I could explain the stuff that I was doing. I even brought in stuff like this, and I brought in my handwritten notes, stuff like, just to show them what I was up to. Say, for example, A minor pentatonic. Where's the A minor pentatonic notes across the neck? That kind of a thing. So I played for him a few songs. Played, say for something like. That or. Or this is just So that's the kind of stuff that I played for him right off. So first time after we introduced ourselves, and he asked me, "What have you been up to for the last little bit?" Then I played a few songs, and I showed him so I could play the bar chords, and then he was. I might have even played some minor sevens, and then I mentioned A-shape bar chords that I was learning, and then I mentioned that I was playing major scale and thirds. And then I mentioned the only other lead stuff that I've done is and that was pretty much it. I showed him the Guitar Aerobics book. He's never seen that book before. His impression of the Guitar Aerobics book, yeah, that's good, but it's not real. For what we're doing, it's hard to apply. Where it comes to advantages when it's applied and trying to apply those concepts. There's a lot of stuff in the Guitar Aerobics book, so his first impression was how to apply applying that would be a bit of a challenge too. Which I agree. It was just good practice to get the hands moving. So when I first few minutes, it was introduction and me just going over, the GCD songs I've been playing, major scale in thirds. I attempted to play it in fourths, and then I forgot the rest. But it was close enough, and then I played the minor pentatonic. And I basically said, no, I'm trying to learn the notes in the neck. So that's basically what I did So that was my first year, the brief intro to my first year of playing, and I was nervous. But when he came in, the only thing he brought with him is his guitar. He had a Takamon, and that's all. So he first started off just listening to what I was saying, which is what I would have expected. And then I think the next thing was he was asking me questions about music theory. He was trying to gauge my knowledge of how to build major scales, how to build chords, and then he would ask me if you were playing. He said if you're playing a bar chord, E-shaped bar chord, at the 5th fret, what's the root note? So he's trying to gauge if I know the notes on the neck. Obviously, it's an A. So, and then he was trying to gauge my knowledge of playing up and down the neck, which that's one weakness that I have. I can't play up and down the neck, and that's kind of where I wanted to go anyway, which I think fits well with the blues thing. So I'm gonna have to force myself to do that. So he's asking me questions about music theory. He was asking major scale. What would be the roots? How would I find that where all the G's are to on the neck and that kind of stuff? Just to gauge where my knowledge is, trying to figure out where my gaps are in knowledge. But this is all 30-minute first. This is a lot to get through in a 30-minute lesson. So the impression I got from him was he was just kind of winging to figure out what we would expect out of this lesson and what to focus on next. My impression, one thing that I noticed was he didn't really have a structure to his lesson. He asked some ad hoc questions and he played some. So one of the things that we did in the lesson was after we agreed that, okay, 12-bar blues and working up towards a Stevie Ray Vaughan song would be something worthwhile to come out of these lessons. So he started playing a 12-bar blues progression and asked me to improvise over it. Which was, I've never done, I've done it once or twice from just a guitar. I've never really done it, and especially never live. So I tried my best, but basically all I fell back to was some just completely flubbed it. So that was more or less the gist of the 30-minute lesson. Because it was my first lesson, I was unsure of how to interpret it. I've been thinking about it since. And one of the things, he wasn't really structured as just, didn't structure the very first lesson like I would have figured a guitar instructor would have done. I would have figured he would have had a lot more questions for me or a lot more suggestions for obvious things that were wrong. He mentioned that my chord changes were okay. Apparently my D chord was, he thought it was kind of weak, or I forget what he said about D chord. But he was okay. He's like, your chord changes are fine, your open chords are okay, bar chords are somewhat okay. Just trying to gauge general musicianship. But then, and we come to an agreement on the blues, but he was very trying to get out of him the homework for next week. I thought was a bit of a struggle. I would have expected him to be a little bit more forthcoming with just after the little bit of playing that I've done, to say, okay, obviously you need to focus on this. One thing he did mention was when I was playing, I could play the major scale in thirds, but when I got to play the pentatonic, okay, get down, buddy. So he pointed out that G major scale in thirds was cleaner than my minor pentatonic, which, okay, it makes sense because I spent a lot more time focusing on the major G major scale in thirds than I have been on. I've been slacking off on the pentatonic stuff as of late, and this is why I've gotten into a guitar rut, playing GCD type songs all day, every day, and then occasionally throwing in the major scale in thirds. So he pointed out as one piece of advice he gave me. He said you need to focus on the pentatonic scale, the minor pentatonic scale for next week. But he was very vague on details. Position, he never mentioned position. He never mentioned articulation. He never mentioned string bends. He never mentioned hammer-ons or pull-offs. He never mentioned anything. So one thing he just said was A minor pentatonic, which was I kind of found that a bit weird. But he's absolutely right. But I found it a bit weird because my first reaction to that was, well, geez, I've been doing this from Justin Guitar. I can put the metronome on and do A minor pentatonic. My first question is, am I going to get value out of this lesson? Some of the stuff that he's telling me, I've already been practicing on Justin Guitar. So I was a bit, but it is the first lesson, and I'm new to all lessons, so and we're both new to each other, so I kind of got to give him the benefit of doubt and think that he will have a plan of attack for the next lesson will be more telling. So it was hard to gauge the first lesson. So if I were to sum up, okay, so I didn't do it going into the lesson. I didn't have a clear plan for what I wanted to accomplish. We kind of came up with a vague plan of 12-bar blues. I'm working up towards a Stevie Ray Vaughan song. One thing he did mention, I mentioned Pride and Joy, but he wanted me to get me playing Texas Flood, which I like Texas Flood, but Pride and Joy, I've got the best of Double Trouble. Texas Flood is the first song, but Pride and Joy is number 2, and number 2 is just, I'll crank that. I just can't wait for Pride and Joy to come on when I got that CD on the car. So Pride and Joy is, it's one of those tunes, and he did point out that trying to get the tone of Stevie Ray Vaughan is a tough ask. So what I'm asking for is a tough ask. It's going to be a long road from where I'm to. But he was very vague on what I needed to do to work on that. But I've been working, Justin Guitar has a blues lead. He has 4 modules or something related to that. So I've been going through that, picking at that every now and again, but I think I need to focus on that. I was nervous. One thing that kind of caught me was the instructor wasn't aware of JustinGuitar.com. He didn't know about it, which was, I don't know if it's a red flag or not. The instructor is relatively new. He's taught before, but he's relatively young. He's been playing for 17 years, but as a teacher, I'm not sure how long he's been teaching or his formal education. So I would have figured the guitar instructors, if you're really good at what you do, you would know about the other people that do what you do and who's the best of the best. And Justin Guitar seems to be one of the better instructors. So it was a bit weird that a guitar instructor didn't know of Justin Guitar. But, there's some guitarists I know that doesn't know of Justin Guitar, so can't really knock him for that. There was no formal materials given out. So say no lead sheets or books or anything of that nature. So it wasn't as structured of a lesson. I suppose if you're a beginner, they might start off with some beginner books, but this was more informal. Just get to know each other and figure out, coming up roundabouts, come up with a rough plan, work out between me and the instructor of what we're going to focus on. So, but it was, the plan is still kind of fuzzy in my mind, and I'm still not really sure how this is going to work out, but I'm going to give it the full go. I'm going to go, I think I signed up for 4, I don't know, forget how many lessons we signed up for. They do it in blocks of a month, and I think I signed up for the remainder of this month plus next month. So I'm going to give it the full shot. The price is reasonable. It's $22 for a half-hour lesson, so at the end of the day, I'll be out $100. I think that's worth just the experiment to see how it goes. So the homework, I found that I had to pry out of him a little bit what I should focus on. What I got out of him was, well, I need to focus on obviously the A minor pentatonic, and basically he's fine with just A minor pentatonic, 5th position. See, I'm still messing it up. So he's right. But he was very unclear on the minor pentatonic. He just said A minor pentatonic, but never mentioned anything. It was very basic. So if we're going to do 12-bar blues, there's a lot other things that go along with just being able to play A minor pentatonic, or hammer-ons and pull-offs and string bends. And he never mentioned any of that. So I questioned him about string articulation, and he mentioned that one of his guitar instructors previously told him it's a bag of tricks. So you can use it if you want, otherwise you don't need to. So I think his plan of attack for first cut at a 12-bar blues improv is more along the lines of straight up pull the notes out of the A minor pentatonic scale, 5th position. Don't need to worry about hammer-ons and pull-offs. If you do it, great. Otherwise, we don't need it for the first cut. But I felt like I had to extract that from him. And then one thing, the one piece of advice he did give me was make sure that I'm recording myself, record a 12-bar blues chord progression, and then practice solo overing the top of it. He said it could be, well, YouTube is probably a bit overkill. You don't really need, he was only focusing on audio, so he's talking about a cassette recorder or a looper pedal, which I don't have. So now I'm contemplating buying my first pedal as a looper. There goes the wallet, because once I start going into guitar stores, anyway, you know what it's like. I don't want to do it, but I'm probably gonna. He's right. I should probably get a looper pedal. It'll be good practice. It'll be good, bit of fun to change up the practice routine. A minor pentatonic. One thing, he seemed kind of enthused for a new student to be playing blues. I don't know if he gets a lot of students. I have no idea. I don't know him personally, and I've only met him for half hour or so. But I think that he doesn't get many students that are interested in blues. I would assume that the store probably gets a lot of younger folks that just are beginners, and they don't really get to that stage. Well, at least with, and he's only been with the store for 3 or 4 months. So he was asking me a question about music theory and that kind of thing, trying to gauge my level of understanding. And I felt like once we got, I'll get to this in a second, but once we got past the initial questions, and then once he started to hone in on the 12-bar blues, So then he got me playing at near the end of the lesson. It was only 30 minutes, so started a little bit of a 12-bar blues, 1-4-5 progression, and then asked me to solo over the top of it. I think he kind of enjoyed that, maybe a little bit too much as the playing side of it, as opposed to. So he might. One of the fears is that he's just using this to play 12-bar blues, but as opposed he's getting more enjoyment from just the playing of it than the teaching part of it. But too early to tell. We'll see. So he got me playing. He got me soloing over a 12-bar blues, but then I was picking up questions, and while he was playing a 12-bar blues, I was kind of blown away at when he's saying 1-4, 1-5, and I asked him, when you say 4 and 5, do you mean the chord, or do you mean the note, the interval? And he said they're basically the same thing. They're the same, which maybe they are, but that answer was a little. It was off the cuff, and I don't think it told the whole story. But given that it's a first lesson and there might be just some communication things, then okay, I'll kind of let that one go, because the difference between the chord and the interval, I would have liked a little bit more of an explanation. I know that, but as an instructor, I was expecting to go a little bit more detail on that. But we were running out of time, so he just came and gave me a quick answer. One thing that he did mention, I asked him, was, alright, so given that I have been playing open chord, GCD type songs, and a very limited amount of lead guitar, what do I need to focus on pretty much from an intermediate perspective to advance as a guitarist? And he kind of gave me the answer, a very vague answer, is basically look at every aspect of your playing, analyze it, see what you're doing wrong, and improve on it. So it's more of self-reflection to figure out where you're to and where you want to be. So I think that's more of, or I think that might be his approach to guitar, is teach yourself guitar and analyze your own playing and figure out where you want to go. It's a little, it's not really the answer I wanted to hear, but it's probably true. Guitar, I've been playing for a year and I can play some basic songs, and it takes a lot of effort to get better. So I mean, I think there's some truth in what he's saying there. One thing I would say, I wasn't really sure what should I expect as a student versus what I expect of him as a teacher. I'm still trying to work that out. I'm pretty self-motivated and I can figure things out on my own. But I would have expected more. I would have expected more of an analysis, a deeper analysis, and more of suggestions and more openness to communication, of explicitly saying, here's where you're weak and here's what I think you should focus on. But it was the first 30-minute session. It's kind of hard to gauge. I'm going to give it the full go. And one thing, I thought I had to pry information from him. He wasn't really forthcoming with what I should focus on. Which for the first lesson, we'll see how it progresses. And it seemed like the communication, or the very first cut at it, we weren't really communicating well. I don't think we're still in the phase of figuring each other's mannerisms out and how we both communicate. So I think that'll come with time. So first lesson, so it's going to take a lot more lessons, but I like the approach of going down to 12-bar blues. And if anything I get out of this is being able to get close to playing something resembling a Stevie Ray Vaughan song, I think I'll be happy. So that was my first experience with a guitar instructor, very first one, and I left there very unsure of how things were going to go. I was not really. wasn't too. I don't think I was overly impressed with the very first one, but then again, I had nothing to gauge it off of. So it's hard to say. We're both probably nervous, but overall, I was not really impressed with the analysis and the critique and the plan of attack for going forward. But we do have a plan, a somewhat vague plan, and that will be next week. So for my homework is to focus on A minor pentatonic, soloing over top of 12-bar blues progression, record myself, and I think the meat and potatoes of it will come next week. So I'm going to be going through, been going through Justin Guitar's blues lead 1, blues lead 2 stuff, and then doing pentatonic stuff, and then practicing a little bit of stuff like, well, fuck that up. So that is my practicing of simple blues licks. And obviously my fingers aren't moving fast yet. A little not picking the right notes. There's a lot of work that I need to do to get better at this. And there's obviously I need to know the notes up and down the neck. Eventually I'm going to need to know all the patterns. But I think he's right that we need to focus just specifically on A minor pentatonic in 5th position. And he suggested, I had to probe him about the metronome. He never offered that up first. So I said, what about a metronome? He goes, so once I asked him, he said, go as slow as you need to make it clean. Which is correct. But again, this is another example of me having to ask him. And he didn't offer up anything about string bends or anything like that, but or phrasing in blues. So he never mentioned anything about blues licks to practice. He's like, man. Or mention about which fingers to use, or string muting, which was something that didn't even come up yet. So I guess that's going to come up in the next one. So I've been practicing A minor, and I've been practicing some string muting stuff. Still working on that. But he never. Those little details didn't come up in the lesson, which I was a bit. In a 30-minute lesson, I guess his plan of attack was come up with a plan for the next lesson. I think that's really what he was trying to do. So I was a little unimpressed with his preparation. I sent him the link to my YouTube channel, and he didn't watch any of the videos. I have 30 or 40 videos there, so if he wanted to know what I could play, he could have watched one of them and known, and he could have done a little bit more preparation. The first lesson could have went a little bit smoother had he have watched some of that stuff and started making some notes. So he wasn't as conscientious as I would have been if I'm an instructor and somebody sent me some YouTube. I probably would have watched it, but I don't know how his schedule is like, and if he has a lot of students, then he doesn't really have time to do that. But in general, I wasn't really thrilled with his approach to the very first lesson. But we'll see how the lessons go. I'm gonna give it a good shot and see where it goes. But I'm excited, and I'm gonna be doing learning some new stuff. So it's all good. So I'll see you in and I'll post a follow-up lesson after next week, and we'll see what kind of progress I've made. See you guys next time.